All right, Pickle. Week 6 of the Texas high school football season is nigh upon us, kicking off tonight. It is the big open date week of the year. I believe it's like a third of the UIL 11-man teams are off this week. But that doesn't mean we don't have great games, including my top 10, working through the NyQuil, top 10 Texas high school football games of the week, starting with number 10, Idalou and Wall. Idalou and Wall going at it in a big game out west. There's a lot of open dates in the year. One thing I think people will notice about this, there's a fair number of open dates in the small school ranks, but this one is a really interesting 3A Division II matchup, and I kind of started thinking about like why these two teams are playing one another, especially considering, look, this is I believe this is a within a region game. Yeah, these are both 3A Division II Region 1, so they could realistically see one another twice. I will say though that this is a matchup of two teams that are in 5-team districts, and so they're probably each looking for a district game or a non-district game here in week 6. I'm really interested to see what Idalou does coming off of their first loss of the year. They lost to Shallowater in a heartbreaker last week. I want to see if they're able to bounce back against a Wall team that has not given any quarter to any particular team. They have one loss in the year into a 4A Brownwood team. But they also have a win over Monahans. They have a win over Jim Ned, which is a win that has aged extremely well. This is a really fascinating ball game. I think this has all the makings of a low-scoring game. 24 points probably wins this game. 24-21 feels like exactly where it's going to land. But I think it's a fascinating ball game, especially in a non-district setting here in week 6, where kind of intra-regional, non-district small school games are hard to come by. Idalou and Wall. Number 9, Tatum and Texarkana Liberty-Eylau. Let's go east. Talk a little bit about this game, which I think has a lot of implications as far as how the rest of the season could shake out there in East Texas. Tatum has bounced back into our state rankings. They've done the snip snap type of thing. They have jumped back into our state rankings after I think really rallying recently. This is a Tatum team that I think is playing extremely well, especially quarterback Ja'Cory Bradley, who's been very good. Caden Tatum, their running back. It's a guy on Tatum named Tatum.
Feels right.
Sometimes God smiles on us. Liberty-Eylau opened up district play last week with an open date, which is interesting. And so they've had 2 weeks to prepare for Tatum. Their offense with Trip Basinger, I think, has been really, really fun to watch, if a little uneven. Remember, a couple weeks ago, we were talking about Liberty-Eylau taking on, I think it was Carthage?
Yes.
It was?
Yes.
Carthage really got the better of them. I want to see if this offense can bounce back against what is a good Tatum defense, which has been playing particularly well. And more importantly, Liberty-Eylau has had 2 weeks to prepare for the flexbone offense of Tatum. How does that play out? Fascinating game, number 9, Tatum and Liberty-Eylau. Number 8, Benjamin and Cherokee. Let's talk a little bit about state-ranked 6-man football in a game that I think will tell us a ton about both of these teams. So Benjamin, I think very famously, is without their top player for the past couple of years in Grayson Rigdon, who transferred and played in the 11-man game there at Columbus. They have been bobbing along at 2-1. Their one loss on the year is to Borden County, but they do have a win over state-ranked Follett, which is a really impressive victory. So they've got simultaneously like a good win and like a mediocre loss, which is interesting, which is going to make this game against Cherokee all the more fascinating. Cherokee is up to number 4, I believe, in the state rankings, and they have been kind of humming along. Their win last week over Sidney, 60-14, as a state-ranked Sidney team, that's their best win of the year. This would be their best win of the year if they can beat Benjamin. I think we will find out exactly how for real Cherokee is, and I think we will also find out exactly where Benjamin stands as well. This is a really good kind of calibration game for both these teams. Benjamin and Cherokee, very interested in that one. Number 7, Corpus Christi, Calallen, and Sinton. So no rest for the weary for Sinton. Coming off of what we have kind of started calling around here like a really signature win for this program, beating Corpus Christi Miller last week. They now come home to take on the high school football program of record on the Coastal Bend for the last 40 years in Corpus Christi, Calallen. This is a Sinton team that now has wins over Miller, Gregory Portland, Port Lavaca Calhoun, Beeville, Jones, Alice, if they were to finish this non-district slate undefeated with a win over Calallen, we can start talking about them as like the Coastal Bend team of record this year. But it won't come easy. Calallen does have the one loss in the year. They lost a couple weeks ago to Corpus Christi Carroll. But they've gotten their wheels back on. And I haven't, this is admittedly, I have not watched tape on Calallen, but we talked a lot about how there is going to be a bit of a transition period as far as the offensive scheme is concerned, with Charlie Reeve coming in and taking over and kind of giving this offense kind of a modernization. Their offense has been up and down. Their defense has not. Their defense has been excellent, and that I think is the challenge for Sinton. I think that this defense is better than Miller's defense, and so can they find a way through offensively with Tristan Hansen and company? Fascinating game there on the coast as Sinton looks to finish their non-district schedule undefeated. Really interesting. Calallen and Sinton. Number 6, Coppell and Denton Geyer in a must-see district game that I think, I think with all due respect to maybe a team like Louisville, I think this is probably for the district title in District 5-6A. Geyer has been, I think, exactly what we thought they were, which is high ceiling and low floor. They have been uneven to start the year. They have a spectacular win over Aledo. They got launched into the sun by North Crowley. They needed overtime, I believe, to beat Flower Mound last week in their district opener. It's a decent Flower Mound team, but certainly Coppell.
It was a 3-0 Flower Mound team.
3-0, but Coppell represents a step up from Flower Mound.
Yes.
This has been a team that I think has looked young. They have a lot of exciting pieces, but they also had 200 yards in penalties last week. They take on a Coppell team that enters as a top 10 team in the state, coming off of a drilling of Hebron last week. This is, in my opinion, the toughest 6A test for any of these teams. Obviously, Aledo represents a pretty significant step up. For Coppell, I want to see if they can continue to get that offense humming with Edward Griffin, Tucker Cusano, and company. And then, can they hold down, can that defense, which has been very, very good all year long, just giving up 21 points a game, can they hold Geyer in check? Geyer's got to play a clean game in this game to win it. This is a fascinating one-score game.
I think what Kevin Sperry does plays a huge aspect into the Geyer thing, too. He's definitely got the juice, but sometimes it's not super consistent.
That's exactly right. He has been up and down. When he's good, he's real good.
Yeah.
And when he struggles, they struggle. And that's kind of where they're at. So,
and Mallory and I were talking about it the other day. It doesn't, to me, it seems like when Geyer's really good, they always have like just a really reliable running back that they can just also be able to hand the ball off to. I think they're missing that this year. So it really falls down to what the receivers can do.
I think you're right. Coppell and Geyer, huge game in District 5-6A. Number 5, Port Arthur Memorial and Galveston Ball. We're going to talk with the head coach of the Galveston Ball Golden Tornadoes coming up here at the end of the show. Sheldon Benight will join us live. They've got a huge test rolling into town in Port Arthur Memorial. This is a state-ranked matchup in 5A Division I. And for Port Arthur Memorial, they have one loss on the year, but that is very, like, they're 4-1, and I think there's an argument to be made they're better than their record indicates. Their one loss on the year is on the road at Fort Bend Hightower, who is in overtime, which is an undefeated 6A team. Okay? Like a state-ranked undefeated 6A team. They don't have a bad loss. They have what you would call a good loss. And I am absolutely fascinated to see the star power on display in this game, especially on the defensive side. Michael Riles for Port Arthur Memorial has been absolutely spectacular. I want to see what they do up against what has been, perhaps the most dynamic playmaker in Texas high school football in Jonah Williams, the outstanding do-it-all star for this Galveston Ball team. He is a threat to change the game on every play. That's the highest compliment I can pay him. But I think he's not alone. Quarterback Kaiden Barker, I think, has grown a lot. This is a game, I think, where we will find out how well Galveston Ball can stop the run, because that's exactly what Memorial wants to do. This is a huge game down there in District 9-5A Division I in the state-ranked showdown at Kermit Corville Stadium in Galveston. We'll talk with Sheldon Benight of Galveston Ball coming up here at the back half of the program. Number 4, Port Neches Groves in Huntsville. So we'll talk about this in the picks. Huntsville is a team that is not to be trifled with. They are a team that I think is absolutely capable of winning this game. They have the one loss on the year. I believe it was in their opener. They lost to Brenham, which is, by the way, I think a loss that has aged well. There's such thing as a loss that ages well. Brenham's turned out to be pretty darn good. They are a team that I think the running game is really dangerous. Guys like Trayshawn Brown and Zay Adolphe, and their defense, I think, has gotten better each week. A lot of this is about Port Neches Groves and what in the heck last week was.
Mm-hmm.
Because they played Montgomery Lake Creek, and they won 62-56.
The defense was just not existent.
It just wasn't there, and they were getting gashed. Now, here's the thing. It didn't matter because P&G's offensive line was just blowing open holes every time they had the ball, and Isaiah Nguyen and Blair Chatanier were able to just run wild themselves. But is that a red flag? Is that a concern? Huntsville is I'll just say this. If P&G plays like they did last week, they will lose this game on the road in Huntsville. They will lose this game if they play like this. And I don't think that's a hot take. I think Huntsville is capable of slowing them down enough that if they play like that, they're not going to win this game. However, this is one of those things where it's like, I think if they go to Huntsville and they win a typically like P&G win of like 31-14, right? Then I think we're just like, okay, they had one hiccup and it's kind of back to business. Fascinating ball game in District 8, 5A Division 2. Number 3, Rice Consolidated and East Bernard. This game I think has snuck up on people. Let me tell you something. Rice Consolidated is a team that we should be paying a lot of attention to. They are 5-0 right now. And more importantly, their defense is giving up 4 points a game. They have given up 0, 0, 0, 6, and 16. And by the way, those last two are against Hallettsville and Bowling. Teams that are very physical, want to run the ball at you. They have a win over Shiner. I know it's a 3A over 2A, but still impressive. They have been very, very impressive to start the year. They win a lot of games like 24-3, 24-0. It is low-scoring, hard-hitting type stuff, but they're winning the ball games. They're playing outstanding football right now. My question is going to be what happens when they take on what is a high-flying attack in East Bernard. The Jeremy Jenkins transformation is happening right now at East Bernard, and we should be paying a lot of attention to it. I do think when I take a look at what's happening right now in District 14, 3A Division 2, I don't know if I'm ready to bury Tidehaven yet, but if you want to tell me this is the district title game, I'd believe you.
Yeah. It's looking like it.
Tidehaven, I think, is still figuring themselves out, and I think they're getting better. But I think that right now, this looks like the district title game. East Bernard and Rice Consolidated, a massive, massive game. Number 2, there's 2 big ones, which is number 2. Denton, Ryan, and Aledo. Talk a lot about this in the picks. I don't want to oversell it here. A lot of this comes down to, can Ryan keep the lid on Aledo's big playability? Can Aledo make Ryan one-dimensional? Can Ryan handle the elements going to Aledo where they have won 122 consecutive district games? That's it. I think the name to know in this game, like obviously Caden Finley, Racing Guillory, right?
Yeah, all the
Musset,
usuals.
all the star power there. The name to know for me is Nemo Warmate, the outstanding running back for Ryan. If they're able to run the ball effectively and just loosen up this Aledo defense, it is game on. But if Aledo can snuff out the run game and make Quinn Hennigan the central figure in this game, then it's going to be 123 in a row. I think they've got to be able to run the ball. It's a huge, huge game. Ryan and Aledo, number 1 versus number 2 in 5A Division 1. But somehow, number 1 versus number 2 is not the number 1 game in the state. That belongs to Humble Atascocita and Humble Summer Creek. It is the beginning of this, like District 23 6A play basically starts tonight. I know it started last week, but it starts this week. And you have actually the number 1 versus number 2 teams in our computer rankings here in Summer Creek and Atascocita. And you have Atascocita and the offense they've got with Carde Mack and Torrey Blaylock. Torrey Blaylock ran for 6 touchdowns last week. He's ridiculous. Their offense has been exceptional. Their defense has been ferocious. Taking on a Summer Creek team that hasn't allowed a point this season. They've outscored opponents 215-0.
That's just insane.
Chad Woodfork, Brandon Jones. And I mentioned this on Tep and Step. If Mart did this, or like if Gunner got into district play and they pitched 4 consecutive shutouts, we'd be like, yeah,
Even South Oak Cliff.
South Oak Cliff, they get into district play and they pitch 4 consecutive shutouts. You're like, oh, okay, I get it. I mean, they played Houston Lamar, they played Shadow Creek. They've shut them down. Chad Woodfork, Brandon Jones. And by the way, they can score too. Blake Thomas, I think their quarterback has really taken a step.
Mm-hmm.
This game is box office. This game, I think, is already sold out. This game is live on Dave Campbell's Texan Live.
Let's go. It is officially sold out. It's sold out on Monday.
You will want to watch this one. Atascocita and Summer Creek. By the way, which of these games do we have on Texan Live? Atascocita, Summer Creek.
Mm-hmm.
Denton, Ryan, Aledo.
Yep.
What else?
Coppell and Geyer.
Coppell and Geyer.
And, yeah, I think that's it.
3 of the top 6 on Dave Campbell's Texan Live.
Not bad.
TexasFootball.com/subscribe. Those are my top 10 Texas high school football games of the week.